Welcome to Burlesk Custom Guitars. Guitars have been my passion for my entire life. Handcrafted by my hands to be played by yours. Each one I create is like no other. My name is James. Come along with me on this musical journey. Hello.
What are you up to over here?
What I'm going to be doing is retubing and biasing this Fender Hot Rod Deluxe. But first I wanted to show you how I get to the point of knowing that I need to retube this Hot Rod Deluxe by showing you how I test some tubes and what to look for and how they actually get done, because a lot of people don't know how tubes get tested.
Great.
So come on over and let me show you. This is a solid state tube tester, okay? And I'm just going to show you a tube that's good and how I test it and the parameters you can test. So what a tube tester does, it tests for shorts, leakage, and also the overall quality of the tube itself. So right now I've got a 6L6 tube in here that I know is in good shape. And right now what I'll do is I'll show you if it has any shorts in it. And what we're going to look for is this little light here, if it stays on when I go through around. And it says here rotate for all shorts, and it'll show me if any of the plates or points on this tube has a short in it. So I'm just going to go around. They might light up really quickly, see, like that did, but it didn't stay on. So that doesn't mean it's a short. So I don't have any shorts in this by the looks. So now I'm going to switch it over to the plate and the leakage test. So I'm going to hit the leakage test. I'm going to let it warm up for a second. And we'll see if anything happens with leakage. And if it would, this grid emission reject up at the top would move and show me that it was leaking. And what it means by leaking is it's actually leaking out of the tube itself. So it's not properly working. And now we're going to test the quality. And as you can see, this says it's about 95%, which is a very good tube. So that's a good tube. Now I'm going to show you a bad tube. Bad tube.
A very bad tube.
Now this guy I know is a bad tube. This is a ruby tube that I pulled out of an amp that was not working, and it was doing some crazy stuff, but this was one of the culprits. One of the culprits. The thing about tubes is they're kind of finicky and they're kind of weird, and they can trick you. They will look like they're powered up. They will seem like they're working, but they'll actually have a short in them or something to that effect. A lot of guys don't ever look at them, and they start worrying about their amps when they start making funny noises and stuff. So I always recommend, as soon as you hear a funny noise from a tube amp, test your tubes. There's real quick ways of doing it. And I can show you that too if you'd like. Once I get this sucker all retubed, I'll show you how to do that. So right now we know this is warmed up. I can actually hear the plates in this thing warming up. But let's see if it's got any leakage. No leakage. Now we're going to test the quality. And it's dead. Nothing. Nada. Zip. It's not even moving. So if you look down here, you can see that tube is actually lit up. It's kind of, you got to come really low, come underneath. You can see it's lit up. See how it's glowing? There's no need to bother testing it for shorts because I know it's no good.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I test tubes. And like I said, it's not 100% that this works. This is like a guideline of showing you how to test tubes. So we're back. I have just installed two matched pair of 6L6 GC tubes and three 12AX7s. I also, for my maintenance on a amp, whenever I'm doing maintenance and retube and biasing, I will clean all the pots. Internally, I'll check and inspect the entire board, make sure that there's no funny looking stuff or burnouts or anything like that, or hot spots on the board. I'll look at the sockets as well, where the tubes sit in, and if they look like they need to be resoldered, the points, I'll solder those as well. One thing I must say, and I can't stress enough, when you're working on a tube amp, it's super high voltage, so it can kill you. So you got to be super careful. If you do not have the right tools, do not do it. If you are nervous in any way whatsoever, do not do it. This is a fairly easy amp to do. A lot of amps can be pretty complex, so you know, I'm just warning you, it's not quite as simple as some people think. You do not have to bias an amplifier when you just replace preamp tubes. That's a bit of a misconception out there with some people. It's only when you replace power tubes. Some amps are self-biasing as well, so you can always check that. Some amps actually you can just redo everything, plug them in, and they're ready to go. But it's always good to check the bias on an amp. So, that being said, this amp has a very easy setup. Where you're going to get electrocuted, I'll just tell you, is off of any of these high voltage capacitors. You can see there's a lot. See 500 volts running through there right now. Right now there's 500 volts running through there. This screwdriver is basically a safety measure. One thing I will advise too is if you are doing this, there's a rule of thumb that a lot of guys do, is keep one hand in your back pocket if you can. That way you're not going to ground out and touch the chassis of the amp and shock yourself. So one hand is usually the best thing to do. When you're using the meter, which I'm going to be doing, there's a test point in this amp right there on the corner. They've made it really nice. I've got this grounded right here. So we're grounded, I know that. And right here is where my bias adjustment is. Okay, now the factory setting, they say, should be about 60 to 65 on here. Anywhere between 60 and 70 is going to be sufficient. So you want to just look for 60, and we're measuring this in millivolts in DC. Okay, so right now I'm just going to check and see where we're at right now. And if you want to just look on the meter, right now we're at 57.7 millivolts. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly turn this up. You don't have to crank it, or you got to be kind of very careful. Just little teeny increments, and you'll just see how that's growing up on me there. I like to set them to about 63. That's kind of the magic number. That seems to be, see, it'll fluctuate a little bit. And I'm happy with that. So what I'll do is I'll keep an eye on this. I'll come back to it in a little while. This is what I like to call the burn-in phase of doing a retube. A lot of people don't know what that means, but burning it in is basically leaving the amp on for a little while. It's usually a couple hours to let the tubes get nice and warm, and then just check all your work and check everything over and make sure all of your what they call voltage points or your bias points are set. There's nothing like a fender going through a fender, especially when it's all fixed. I am installing a Fishman pickup into Mitch's guitar, and what I'm doing is I'm actually permanently, well, not permanently installing it, but pro-installing it. So this is actually going to go on to a end pin, wherever my end pin is, around here somewhere, and installed, wired up, and all that jazz. It's going to be very sexy with a end pin jack. So it's going to go in the back here, on here, and you can plug his guitar in, and this will be properly mounted inside. I've cropped it already, and just going to get it all ready and wire it up and throw it in.
Great, we'll get that done and we'll have a listen.
Sure. finish this up, install the Fishman and a input jack, so she's ready to go for my good buddy Mitch. There you go. Sounding good and pretty. Hey there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just final sanding this body, and what I've got on here right now is a 150 grit. Then I'm going to go to a 220 grit. Then I'm going to go to hand sanding because I have to get into all of these nooks and crannies and get everything just clean as a whistle. I don't want any lines or any bumps or anything like that. Especially on a natural wood grain base, you got to keep it really clean because that's what's going to be coming through, and that's what you want to see, and you don't want to see little squiggly lines and stuff in there. So final sanding is imperative for anything that you're not painting a solid color. So you want to be really, really thorough and get in everywhere you can see, because anything you can see is basically going to show up with the stain. And as you layer it, and it's just going to become more pronounced if you're using a clear coat, especially a high gloss. So, and you know, make sure that you've got all of the boogers out, as I call them. The neat thing about this base is I'm staining it first, and then I'm actually going to be carving with a file all of the access points, and all along this edge there's going to be like a bevel of the actual natural wood. So that's why I want it as clean as possible, and you know, that just takes time and a lot of effort, and just keeping at it, making sure you got to get all of this stuff out of here. So I got work to do, so I will talk to you later, and always wear a mask when you're sanding. Safety first.
What's going on?
I am just doing the final spacing, and I'm going to drill the holes for the controls in this base that I'm building, but I'm just trying to figure out how it gets wired up, where it gets wired up, and spacing in the control cavity for the preamp, and then the controls for the preamp, and then the battery wires got to come through. So this is something that I got to do well ahead before any drilling goes down or any of that kind of stuff, to basically get the layout and get it properly spaced and comfortable for the plant. Yeah, because you got to have your controls in a good spot that you can access them, but that are not going to get in your way. It's kind of a hard thing to do on some guitars. In some guitars they build them and they're right in the way of some, and it depends on the playing style too of the person. So you got to really kind of think about it when you're buying a guitar too. You know, when you're strumming and stuff, are these controls going to be in the way? That's why a lot of guys play certain guitars.
Sure, comfort.
Yeah.
And certain bodies are smaller and larger, right?
Yeah, and the controls are in different spots. Like, you know, if you look at a Les Paul and a Strat, they're completely different.
Right.
So this is kind of what I'm doing here, and in this case, it's a preamp system with a push-pull bass boost, and then I believe the mid and treble. I'm just trying to figure out which is which here, but yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it's a pretty cool little setup. And then I've got this really nice Aguilar pickups that I just will be installing as well. So this is a full setup from Aguilar, which is really nice.
Where are they made?
These are made in the States. They make basses as well. They make bass, pardon me, not basses, they make amplification units and stuff, like bass amps and pickups and stuff like that. So yeah, I've got this all ready to go and sized.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there covers for those as well?
No, these are just, they sit right out and expose. That's what you're gonna see. I just put them in upside down so you see how they fit.
Very high tech looking.
Yeah, they're actually really, really nice pickups.
So what's next for this guitar, James? Oh.
Sanding.
Sanding.
Every corner, nook, cranny, and take all the little swivels and dings and stuff out of it from handling it. And then I'm going to stain it royal purple.
Wow.
So the next time you see this, it's going to be purple.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. and I'm really looking forward to it. And then what I'm going to do, you'll see after, we're going to carve it out, so you're going to see wood grain and stuff all throughout the base as well as the purple. It's going to be really slick.
Wow. And you're doing all this sanding by hand?
Yes, I have to. I mean, you got to get into these areas here that machines can't get into. I mean, you can use the for the initial, but to get the really fine detail and get all of the stuff out, you have to do it by hand. There's no way. You'll get swirl marks if you look right here, you can actually kind of see swirl marks from using a sander on it just for roughly finishing. You see them there?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yes.
Now if you were to stain over top of that, they would blast through like crazy. You'd see that all throughout the guitar. So you have to sand it down smooth, all in one direction, and make sure all of that stuff is out. So it'll probably take me, honestly, probably 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's to sand it, and then staining and stuff would just take a little while, depending upon how dark I want to get it and how many layers.
How many layers?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, it'll be so fun to see it when it's purple.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. How's it going? Just doing some fretboard work for the baritone guitar that I'm building for my client Alex. I've done all my practice cuts and got my levels all set, and just gonna continue on here.
You can just kind of feel it when you get to the level, and the saw just rests on all the bearings, and then you know you're there. Just goes through nice and clean, very stable.
As you can see, it's quite a lot of work. And you got to do this 22 times. So I'm going to check my depth, and I always like to go a little deeper than normal. So as you can see, come over to this side, and you'll see that I'm clear of that line. As long as I know I'm clear of that line, I'm good to go. Continue on. Hi guys, just wanted to let you know that if you had any ideas or comments or questions, please send them forward our way, either on the YouTube channel, or you can Facebook us, or whatever's easier for you. You never know, it could turn into an entire episode. So any questions, comments you have, let us know. Burlesk Guitars is here to help.